Good morning, everybody. It's Marty the JavaScript Party. My buddy Rhett. She's excited about her nut. She was really excited to come out here this morning. She got to come out yesterday, but she hadn't gotten to come out in a while. So today she got to come out. So we are working on unit tests, and basically the unit tests sort of exposed some sort of a bundle of code not that was not really intelligible, I guess is the right word, or maybe like you can't really. It just wasn't particularly. It was very difficult to understand, and so we broke that down. That's kind of what we've been doing for the last couple of days. And here we go. We look in here, and basically it looks like yeah. So this was a bit of a mess. Like there was like a subscribe, and it was creating like a I don't know. There was just stuff going on in there, and so we've broken it down, and now we basically say, hey, if there's an event, a navigation event signal, then um, run this effect. Now the navigation signal comes from this actual. It's this guy right here. So it's a two signal this router event. So I don't know. There's a lot of what do the kids say these days? I don't know if it's kids. To me, they're kids. It could be like 30-year-olds, but I hear this phrase a lot now. And um, mostly, I think I was introduced to it by ChatGPT. Um, I could have sworn there was one. Yeah, there it is. There's one that um, that is not, doesn't have an expectation in there. So we need to go back and take care of that. Um, but like heavy lifting, I'll hear them say, or doing a lot of work. This one's doing a lot of work. This line of code here is doing a lot of work. I have no idea what it's doing. But basically, it's taking this router events, which I believe router events is a what do they call them? An observable. It's an observable, and it converts it into their navigation signal. And I don't know. I don't know anything beyond that. I do know it fires and all that. And I do like to have a thing where I understand what everything does, but I don't really want to go down this rabbit hole of understanding what two signal does. Probably be a very useful thing to do though. But so now we're going to listen for that signal. So that's pretty easy. To me, that is okay. We're listening for signal. That's fine. It's easy to do that. And then we're like hard coding it. We're saying it must be an event. So we're not giving it. We're telling it. We're telling TypeScript treat this as an event, whether it's an event or not. Treat it like it's an event. And so it's like okay. And then we publish the edit, update, render ID, and we pass in the router and the event. And basically, all that logic used to sort of be bundled up, I believe, inside of this effect in this constructor. So now we call this thing. Um, and actually, all of this was also kind of bundled up too. Um, and there was like a filter operator, RxJS operator that could not get it to where I could unit test it, where I could get unit test coverage. So since that's a sort of a requirement of this project, I just can't use it. And that's the reality. A lot of times you just like there's like limitations placed on you as a developer, and it's like you cannot. We don't ever want to see this. Like a good example is like where I work. You're not allowed. Like I think that this is really cool, right? Like it's saying, hey, this is a signal. You can tell it's a signal. Hey, this is a executable code. So here, oh, here's where we publish the signal. Like I think that those emoticons are really helpful, but where I work, we're not allowed to put emoticons in comments. It's just a rule. It's a limitation. You just got to live with it. Um, one of the limitations of this code is if I can't get it unit tested um, in a reasonable way, like I know sometimes you can like do like spies or something like that, which doesn't really prove a darn thing, but it does end up firing the code. Um, then, and well, okay, so if it ends up firing code, it does prove that the code can be executed, which is actually that's not nothing. But anyway, so now it looks like we are to the point where we're going to start writing um, unit tests. And it looks like we have four or start writing tests for these functions. It looks like we have four functions. They have pretty easy like logic. Like so this all this really needs is a all check for route information needs is a string with more than two or yeah, more than two um, items in it, and it'll return true. And then this will be covered. So that's what all of that work the last couple days has just been about that. So we have to find this file, which is app update layout service. See, there's just so many little things, right? That is just normal now. Like having a little icon there to put something in your clipboard is just normal. It's just expected now. It used to be like a wow, that's a really cool cutting edge thing. Now it's expected. And this Karma Jasmine, like they just didn't keep up, with the latest stuff. Or Istanbul. It's probably, I think it's called Istanbul, I think creates this, that, whatever that. And that's the thing is like Karma or Jasmine is judged based on this tool. And I don't even think they built this tool. So I guess that's sort of a reality. But now we come over here. App layout service. Oh, and then what I usually do is like close it, open it, and it sort of makes it easier to focus on where it's at. And we already have a spec, so that means we already have a um, service. So we over here. So I'm gonna start at the bottom. So check for route information. Should check for route information. I always like that when I can like write the unit test where the title of the unit test is pretty much the same as the name of the unit of the function you're trying to test. I think that is uh, um, I think that's super helpful if you can do that. Let's see, expect service. Well, I guess before we do that, let's comment this out. And this is what got me in trouble, probably on that other one, the toggle, because I usually do this service. I'll like get the coverage first, and then I'll write the And so we know that if we pass it an array, and literally all it has to do is have multiple, like more like three items in it. It doesn't even matter what they are. So like that's all this thing cares about is are there three items? Now, there like if you're really wondering like about this, if you read this, you can't really tell that. You kind of have to look at this code and say, oh, okay, if there's three items, and but it would there's no real good way to just say, hey, if there's three items, like people that's a bit much. That's a lot of comments for in the code base. Like if you get too many comments in the code base, you can get to the point where you're not even like where they're not very helpful. Like it's hard to even find the code. I've worked at places like that where like there's so many comments in the code that you can't even like find the code. Um, so it's just like very distracting. So people try to avoid that. All right, so we got that one covered. So what do we expect? Well, it's supposed to return a string. No, it's supposed to return a Boolean. So we're going to make a constant, and we're going to call it has information, and that is equal to that. And then we expect has information to be truthy. And again, we could write some more tests uh, to be, like to actually check, like, okay, so does it return a false if I don't? But like, honestly, all I care about is, for the most part, from a unit test perspective, all I care about is getting to 100%. I'm not trying to build like unit tests that like actually um, validate the logic or anything like that at this point. Maybe at some point I will, but I don't. I've never seen a whole lot of value in that. Um, but I have seen a lot of value in that the process of going through looking for. If you don't have coverage, that is one indication that the code is a bit more complex than it should be. Um, it's not definitely not like a 1-to-1 ratio. It's probably like 1 out of 10 times, 1 out of 5 times when you're having a hard time, or when the coverage code isn't just naturally happening. Code coverage, there's like a lot of complexity that needs to be broken down. Okay, so now we're trying to find the renderer string from the route, and literally it just returns um, the a string that is found in um, in the array that you pass it in. So see, this is would be the perfect place to write that as a to write that as like almost like a comment. It's just like, okay, all you do is send into 3 items and it'll return the third item. Like it just this is a great place to put that sort of statement. No one ever has a problem with you having that kind of statement inside of the unit test. Um, should return the renderer ID. And I'm going to call it st renderer ID for a given for from route information. And like if we change the way um like this information, like let's say we say, oh, we're going to put the ID in the fifth thing or something like that, all of this stuff should break. And that will be a very good indicator that we've like sort of bumped into an architectural issue as opposed to just like a bug. But I never ever use these to debug code. So like to be like, oh, I have a bug, let me run the unit test and see what's going on. I never do that. Um, Now, sometimes the results of the unit test, so like if you had like a CI/CD pipeline, the results of the unit test many times will be quite useful, but the actual, um, like just going, oh, I need to run the unit tests. I've never had that be useful. And just to be very clear, okay, so const, what is this thing? The st render ID. Um, Forgot what I was going to say again a second ago. Is equal to get from route information. We know we want to send in basically this. And what you'll see a lot, and you'll be very tempted to do it, and it might work for you. I don't know, but what you'll see a lot is like like another file that loads all these values and stuff, and abstracts it away, so you have to go look at some JSON or something to dig down and find whatever. That is always so tempting to do. Um, Never seen that be. I've definitely worked at places where it wasn't that bad, but equal, and then I do find this, like I was like, okay, const results. I mean, info equals, and like I don't know. I feel like like years ago, maybe like 15 years ago or so. Um, and I think this is more of an age thing, maybe not. It's hard to tell, but I remember about 15 years or before, longer than 15 years ago, I used to actually like to increase the cognitive load on things because I got bored. So it was like nice to sort of add some abstractions and things like that, just so I my cognitive load would be higher. And now like my whole world is all about lowering cognitive load. So 0, 1, and 2. So we expect it to be the second one. As you see down here, we're doing that. So let's hit that. Hit that. Oh, that's not this. This is not this. This is service. There we go. I don't know if it's actually building or not. Find that to be kind of a bit confusing. I'm pretty sure it did not run. It did not build it out, but for some reason it did not rerun the unit tests. Yeah, Carmen Jasmine's definitely not like the absolute perfect thing in the world, but it's all we had or it's the best thing we had for a very, very long time. Um, and there's just so much work in it. It's going to be a real shame. You know, you guys have seen how much work, if you go back and watch these videos, how much work I put into these unit tests, and they're like, it feels like that's all for naught at this point. It feels like I'm just going to have to remove all the TypeScript, all the unit tests, maybe possibly for Angular 22. Okay, let's see. So, all right, so we got a couple more um, branches. All the functions are covered. Um, we've got 4 lines and 3 branches. And it's basically, I just need to call this in with a render ID string of 1 and a mode of update. And then it can do this renderer ID. And then I think this one, all I have to do is pass in a string with the update in the first, and then we'll have 100% coverage on this one. So let me go back to all files. I know there's one other thing here, date layout. Yeah, so basically, so all we have to do is pass in something that's got a DOM element on it. We might have to like force it to be an update layout component. Like we might have to just make like with TypeScript saying, hey, this is an update layout component, but literally all it will have is a viewer, view, and a native element, and then it will return true. And then is render created. Ooh, this one. I am not sure how we're going to unit test that one. Feels like we might actually have to mock out app update layout service, like have a fake service instead of actually using the real service, mock one, and then create the edit render ID function in there. I don't know. We might actually be able to use see that I don't really want to do that. So what we could do is we could actually use I'm pretty sure this has a instance of the update layout service, and we could probably it probably has like a set, and we could publish it and all that. A lot of people would have a problem with that in in unit testing because they're like, well, then you're kind of like deeply coupling this app layout component to the service. Like if you change the service, it could break this. And that's such a good point because it's a good point because like they should be able to change whatever they want without worrying about this thing breaking. But the problem is actually we are deeply coupled. If they change the way this works, it will break this component. So I guess these people, like I could imagine an argument where someone says, "No, now you're deep coupling. You should mock out the app layout service, but it's like, no, we deep coupled it to the app layout service here. Yeah, we deep coupled it here to the app layout. So all we're doing is acknowledging that deep coupling. We aren't the ones creating the deep coupling. We're acknowledging it, and we're making sure that if something were to change there, it wouldn't break anything. Now, this probably would be easier. I don't know. It might be easier to unit test. See, all we need to do is get it to return something greater than 0. Yeah, we'll have to play around with that. That's going to be a tricky one. That's going to be a good learning one, and then we'll be done. Um, so I think that this is going to be the hardest one, though, and it's going to be the last one. To be a good one. Anyways, happy coding, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Bye.